Welcome to the Academic Writing Amplified podcast. On this podcast, we believe that the culture of academia needs to change radically. Women and non-binary people are revolutionizing academia within institutions that were not built for us. If you're ready to reject the culture of overwork, kick guilt and overwhelm to the curb, and amplify your voice to make a real impact on your field without breaking down or burning out, you're in the right place. With our team of experienced writing coaches as co-hosts, we'll share insights and talk to inspiring guests to bring you the practical strategies, systems, and mindset shifts you need to find time to write, publish work you love, and design your career on your terms. And it all starts with writing. Let's go. Hello, 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 and the happiest of New Year's. Happy 2025. I am so glad to be back recording some new episodes to start the new year. And today's episode is called Write Your New Year's Story. We're going to be talking about agency. We're going to be talking about decision making. And I thought I would kind of use my experience of reflection on 2024 and the process that I go through every year to write the story of my next year agentively. That's what I'll do on today's podcast. But before we get started, I'm very excited to announce that my Navigate program is open for enrollment right now. I'm going to give you all the Navigate details at the end of this episode, but please know that we are in the enrollment period and you can submit your application today. You can find out all the information at scholarsvoice.org/navigate. Stick around to the end of this episode for pricing information, call times, what the program's about, even if you don't know, if you're a little new to the podcast and maybe you have never heard of it before. So stick around to the end. I'll give you all the details that you need in order to make a decision whether you want to apply. And yeah, let's get started with writing your New Year's story. So to say that 2024 was a big, and the word that comes to my mind is actually tumultuous, year for our family. I think that's probably pretty accurate. 2024 was a year of many great things happening and kind of next level problems to solve for us as a family. So I am recording this episode in I'm going to go ahead and call it my dream house. So gosh, if you've been listening for a while, you might know something about my house. If you're a really, really OG follower, you will remember when we built it and moved in. But basically, I want to use the story of what's happening in my family life as a way to talk about kind of mindset and shifts and changes and the struggle that I've had this year to hold on to and remember that I am the writer of my story and that I am the creator of my thoughts, at least, most of the time. Those reactive thoughts absolutely get in, and I'll talk about that as well. So I'm sitting in my dream house, and what am I doing? I'm packing boxes to move. Let me tell you about this house. So when I was pregnant with my son, so that was 15 plus years ago, he just turned 15, we bought this 10 acres that is very much in like a rural area of Puerto Rico, but also pretty dang close to the university. So at that time, it was 2008 is probably when we signed, 2008-9, when we bought and then finally signed the papers on this 10 acres. And it was 10 acres of forest. There was kind of a clearing at the top of the hill, but many invasive species trees all over this area, which historically had been agricultural land, but had been, overgrown by tropical forest, as happens very quickly. Probably there was about 30 years of growth. And that's why I just want you to picture like a forest on the top of a hill. And we bought this 10 acres and we thought someday we will build there when we're ready. And unfortunately, when my son was about 3, my father-in-law passed away very suddenly and way too soon. And that prompted us to say, man, if we're gonna do something, we better do it. Now, it certainly didn't happen even the next year, it didn't happen the next day, certainly not even the next year. But that's what really started the ball rolling on this project of building this house. We both were still full-time university professors. At that moment, I was not thinking about ever doing anything else. And we worked with an architect to create the idea of this building and the shape of it and what we wanted it to be. And then we worked with, the local co-op to fund it and with the builders to build it and created our dream home on the top of a hill in Puerto Rico, in Mayagüez, Puerto Rico, with a view of the ocean. Beautiful, fantastic, amazing. So why am I packing boxes and moving out of it? Well, the great lesson of 2024, I think for me, is that dreams change and that's okay. And that sometimes our life takes us in a direction that you never would have imagined like even possible. So let me relate this to the academic career and also talk to you about my struggles with this process throughout this year and kind of where it's headed in 2025. So I think that most of the people who listen to this podcast are pretty ambitious. And whether you say that kind of secretly in your head or whether you yell it out loud, you want to change the world with your academic ideas, and you want to have an impact on your field with the populations, whether they're populations of plants and animals or populations of people that you work with, and the ideas that you create, right? Like you are looking to create impact and have a strong, thoughtful voice. And sometimes in the process of doing that, we make a goal. Many of us will have in our careers made the 10-year goal, right? Like, this is my goal. I want to get tenure. This is my goal. I want to start a research center. I want to get full professor, whatever the different kind of, I want to get this big grant or a grant of this kind or start doing this kind of work. We put that goal out there, and because we're great at working really, really hard and we're pretty dang smart and resourceful, eventually, usually, we will hit the goal. And sometimes then we feel like, now what? A little bit like, now what? So all of that is great. So like, I'm saying it as if there's like some kind of bad part of it. There's nothing bad about that. I think what is less talked about is that when you complete a project or when you reach a goal that you've set, what do you do? Like, what's on the other side of it? And with the professors I work with in my coaching business, really what's on the other side of it is a next level kind of goal or a next level thing. And sometimes it's hard for us to even imagine what we might create next. And I feel that way. Gosh, I feel that way about this business, that with the program that I've created and this podcast and all the free resources I put on the internet, the YouTube channel, the blog, everything. I feel a little bit like, wow, like, hey, I've created a lot from nothing. I have created a body of work. And I feel that way with this house as well. From nothing, we created this vision, we enacted the vision, and we achieved the vision that we had put out for this house. And so it wasn't easy to realize that it was time to move on from this vision of what we had imagined our lives to be. When we sat down with the architect to design this house, we were doing it from the perspective of two professors. And professors in Puerto Rico certainly make a lot more money than the average, and it's not so much money. And I mean, we're both making like $85,000 a year at our level as professors, but there was no raises coming in the next 30 years. So it's like, that's what you get. You're at the top. And I think it was a financial stretch this house was a financial stretch for us. And I think it was the decision to build what I wouldn't have made with the knowledge of money and finances and the relationship to money that I have now. I probably wouldn't have made the decision to build because it certainly has stretched us financially. And I think anybody who has built will tell you, the bank says it's going to cost this X amount. The builder says it's going to cost this amount. And it will always cost 10 to 50 to 100% more than that. So, and that certainly happened with us. And that just, to be honest, like strapped us and has made living here difficult financially because it probably wasn't the right decision to do a project of this size. Anyway, then, I think never imagined when we sat down to first sketch out the house and the plan for the project that I would build my own business. And that's what my career would grow into, is the business that is writing coaching and academic career coaching. And this is the free podcast arm of that. Anyway, in 2023, we got an offer we couldn't refuse, to be frank. And it meant that we bought a dairy farm, a working dairy. Now, if you've been a listener to the podcast and you've been listening closely, you might know that my husband is a dairy cattle nutritionist. And without being like too, I don't want to not be transparent, but I also don't want to give you all every single detail of our financial lives. But basically, the owner of the farm was wanting to retire, and he didn't want to sell the farm off in pieces, and he didn't have a kid to hand it down to who wanted it. And so he worked with us to make sure that we could buy it. And it is an hour from this house where I am. So the dairy farm is an hour from this house. And so it was really October 2023 that we took possession of the farm. And so it's been just a little over a year that we've been running it. In the summer, it became very clear that we needed to live there. And I thought we would just live there in the summer, and then we would, my husband would stay there maybe with my son, and my girls would come with me here because it's close to the girls' school. My oldest is a senior. She's graduating. So I'm like, well, let's just get through this senior year and we'll be in two places and whatever. But that also did not work. It was too much. It was better and more stable for us all to be at the farm and commute to school, have the girls commute to school. So that's what we did. And so in the summer, it felt like we weren't really going to move. We were just going to live there temporarily because, of course, there's like an administrator's house on the farm. And it's certainly like a comfortable house. There were renovations that needed to be done, but it was big enough for our family. And we stayed there kind of without furniture, like with just beds, like without any living room furniture or anything for the summer. But it became clear around September that we were going to need to sell this house, and that would be the best move. And not only did I have to think about a lot of logistics, I also had to go through an identity shift and a mindset shift when we made that decision, or in the process of making that decision. And that mindset shift was, this was my dream house. How am I going to sell my dream house? I designed this house. The kitchen is shaped the way it's shaped because of suggestions that I made. We built this exactly how we wanted it to be. How are we going to sell it to somebody else, right? How are we going to leave it behind? We thought this would be our retirement home. We thought we were going to live here for our whole lives. So it was an identity shift to think about what really is kind of like an up-level dream. So I invite you to think about in 2024, what were the things that changed your identity? What kind of identity shifts did you have to make that are actually a part of you achieving your wildest dreams, of actually successfully meeting goals? What happened? You have new goals and new ideas and a new vision, perhaps, for your life. That is certainly the process that I've been going through in 2024. So as I look to 2025, let me talk about the hard parts though. I mean, the identity shift was hard. When you say identity shift, it doesn't sound that much of a big deal, but it was definitely hard. So here's the hard part. It has been the hardest thing to run this dairy, and way more, like far harder than I could even imagine. It has been one thing after another, a new thing every day, and obstacles and obstacles and obstacles. And that is farming. I invite you to really think about that as you eat anything. Like, I know sometimes because of the supermarketification of food, we're really disconnected to what it takes to produce food, but at least, and like a dairy in the US might have 10,000 cows. I don't know. Our dairy has 100, and we are a small operation. It's hard. It's really hard. There's so many uncontrollable factors, and there is so little profit margin that when you make mistakes, they like literally cost you thousands of dollars. And sometimes you're making mistakes, and sometimes, I was going to say mistakes are happening to you, but sometimes things are happening and you're trying to mitigate their impact the best you can. Great example, and this, of course, is ironically is my husband's area of study, is climate adaptation, right, of dairy cattle. And we had an exceptionally the hottest summer that we've ever had in Puerto Rico, and as many places I think in the world did this summer, and it greatly affects the animals. They're not, they have to spend a lot of energy to cool themselves, and that's less energy they can spend making milk. So we have been doing a dance all summer between the cows are too hot, so they're not making enough milk. The cows are now we're going to have a hot and it's going to be rainy. So the cows are going to get sick because of too much moisture. Then we change the feed, and then we don't have enough money for different feed, and like all kinds of, there's so many different levers to pull to try to fix problems. And it's really, really hard. And that's why I wanted to come back today to talk to you about agency. So I don't have agency over the weather. I wish I did. I don't have agency really over the cow production. I mean, I do in only like a very tangential way. But what I have to do to keep going is to remember that I have agency in my thoughts, at least maybe not initially, but I can work to reclaim my thoughts and have my thoughts working for me and my mindset working for me. And I can reframe and remember who I am and what I can do when I am faced with challenges. So I think that what I wanted to share with you about that is that many things happen to us. We are constantly in co-creation with the world. So we are creating our lives, our careers, our thoughts, our dreams, our plans, our buildings, our programs, our writing, and everybody else and everything else is also changing and creating at the same time. And we are in this interaction with all of that. And so it can sometimes feel like we don't have agency. And even in what I've told you on this podcast, I'm sure you've heard the kind of my voice when I was just like problems with the dairy. It's very hard to remember that I am equipped to solve these problems. And that I, not just like with my brain, because I have great problem solving skills and I have experience in business and I have capacity to adapt and change and react to what's going on. Like that, like I have to remember that. And when I was driving here today, I was listening to somebody else's year in review podcast. And that was the thought that came to my mind. Like in those moments where literally, to be absolutely honest, just this week, there was more than one moment when I had a sobbing fit because I was like, this is too hard. I don't know what to do. Woe is me. Which is legitimately feel that, right? And then I cannot stay in that. If I stay in that feeling, I am forgetting who I am and what I'm capable of. So today, with my fresh morning brain, I thought, I can do this. This is hard, but I can do it. And that is a thought I would like to offer to you when things come out of left field and want to knock you down. That yes, it is hard, and you are so capable of solving the problems, of reacting in a measured way, in a thoughtful way, in a way that's in line with your values. So what do you want to bring into 2025 to write your story agentively, right? With agency. For me, I will say that even though right now the dairy is taking a big focus in my life and in my family's life, the good parts of it are that in really what has been just 4 months or so, we have decided to moved our stuff and settled our family and made the plan for the next year in terms of where the kids are going to go to school. I've almost got that figured out. And my daughter has gotten into university. So all of what's happening next is starting to crystallize. I want 2025 to be, this is my process for when I am at this New Year's point. What I like to do is I like to theme my years, remembering everything that we've talked about on this podcast before about seasonality, thinking okay, well, what do I want 2025 to be like? And I don't have a word yet. Sometimes I try to do a word or phrase of the year. And then I keep that as a sticky note on my computer, something like a touch point to go back on. I haven't figured that out yet, but I can tell you that I want next year to feel less. Maybe right now, the message I want to tell myself about 2025 is remember that you are capable and remember that you have the skills to do what needs to be done. And that is probably the message I need to bring into 2025, and the intention that I need to set is, let me remember that I have the capacity to handle this new adventure that my husband and I are on, and that we are, as a family, really dreaming new dreams. And the beginnings of dreams are always messy and weird, and you don't know what's going to happen. And you're making the path by walking, right? Finding the path by walking. that's where we are, I think, in 2025. Actually, I like that because I like the finding the path by walking as maybe the phrase of 2025 for me. I don't know. I have to try that on for size and play with it a little. So for you, how will you write your New Year's story? How do you want to shape 2025? Let me give you some reminders about seasonality of the academic life. One thing that I work with when I'm in Navigate and with my one-on-one clients a lot about is seasonality and thinking about the relationship between grants and papers, or the book writing journey, or that kind of thing. So think about, like, is this a year where you're starting new projects, where you're applying for grants? Or is this a year where you really need to clear the pipeline or write up data that you've collected? And you're probably thinking, well, both, all, I need to do all the things. And yeah, right? Like, you do probably need to do all the things. But what will the focal thing be? What will the focal thing be? What is the thing that will characterize 2025 for you so that you can really let that be the focal thing and let the other things support it? So, in terms of writing, what are the practices you want to make sure to work on and solidify in 2025? What worked for you well in 2024 that you want to bring in to the new year? And what are some things you might want to try or build on? New writing times, longer writing sessions, shorter writing sessions, regular, time on your schedule to write, a new place to write, maybe new writing partners. What do you want to pull in from 2024? What do you want to leave behind in 2024? And what do you want to develop in 2025? Where do you see yourself going? I love the new year for its wide-eyed innocence and the idea that anything is possible. It wears off fast, that feeling. So while you have it, write down, like, what do you dream of for 2025? Where are you headed and what do you want, especially for your writing? That dreaming is the writing of your New Year's story. It is the writing of the story. You are the author of your 2025 story. So what story will you write? I hope that that's inspired you a bit to think about your next year. I'll say, if those of you, well, let me say this because I've gotten this question before. Some people are like, yeah, but you tell us to really focus on one thing and you're doing so many things. So it's absolutely true that right now, unlike in 2023, for example, I have 2 jobs instead of 1. So I am a writing and career coach and I run the Navigate program and I record this podcast. And I am also the operations manager of a dairy farm. The operations manager part is something that I am learning so that I can hire for it. And that, I have to say, it's a struggle. It's hard, but I'm documenting everything I'm doing. And I am basically creating this position, describing it, creating protocols and processes so that somebody else can do it. And 2025 might not be the year that we hire because, it's like turning the Titanic. Like we really have to take this dairy from just barely being held together and limping along to really, to use my own language, soaring, right? And it's going to take time for that. And so I might have for all of 2025, 2 jobs. And it's not ideal, but I also know that it's temporary, that, we will get to a point because, again, reminding myself, because I am capable and because I have the capacity to do this, we will get to the point where we are profitable enough to hire for my position, and we will do that. There are so many bigger ideas than just the dairy. There's a big picture and a really legacy style project. And I'm very excited about that for that, my family is creating. And my business as a writing and career coach will have a part in that. Like, there is an overlap, if you can believe it. Actually, I'll give you a little hint of what the overlap might be. We definitely, people have said, are you going to run retreats on your farm, have retreats at your farm, like writing retreats at your farm? And the answer is yes, not in 2025, but that is part of our vision for the future of creating really a research institute on our farm, where mostly agricultural researchers would come for and interns and training and hands-on things and research, but that we would have facilities that we could also use as a retreat center, so that if you wanted to come and be in a very peaceful environment, I could run writing retreats right there on the farm. Speaking of which, I have decided to run a writing retreat this summer coming up. If you've made it this far into the podcast, I'll give you the quick information. It will be, I think, starting the last Friday, I think it's the 25th of July. And it is going to be less expensive than my previous retreat offerings. That was something that was important to me for this year. And so if we don't sell out to all of our clients and we put it out to the whole list, you might hear about it. And if you're really interested and you're like, oh, I really want to go on that retreat, send us an email at support@scholarsvoice.org and we can give you all the information. But right now it's only being promoted to people who have already gone through the programs. So anyway, that's a little aside. But I have dreamy dreams for a beautiful retreat center and a place for scholars to come and all of that. But that is a pretty long term, or it's like that's like a 3-year plan, not a next year plan. All right. Well, I've blabbed on a lot about myself, but I hope that in doing so, I've helped you think about what do I want to do in 2025? How do I want to write my story with agency? How do I want to make better decisions in 2025? How do I want to make decisions based on my deep knowledge that I am capable? Oof. That's a story I'm telling myself that I need to really listen to this year. All right. If you made it this long in the podcast, I would love to tell you about our Navigate program. So if you're not interested in hearing about the program, you can stop the podcast now. Navigate is because you come and do it with me, 12-week program that helps you publish your backlog of papers. And it starts the first week of February and runs until mid-April. It is a 12-week program that is a combination of recorded content and live calls. Every week, you get a recorded lesson. We start with your publication pipeline and organizing your projects and deciding on a low-hanging fruit project to work on throughout the 12 weeks that you will submit by the end of the 12 weeks. And we walk through from this big idea kind of publication pipeline, which I see as a multi-project plan. And then through the 12 weeks, we drill down all the way to developing your individual writing sessions, right? In the process, we talk about writing project management. You learn about writing problems versus writing tasks and how you take a different project management approach to writing problems and writing tasks, and how that is going to make you more predictable in terms of your own ability to predict how long things take you to complete. You're going to do a big audit of everything you're doing, and you're going to cut stuff because you are doing too many things, but you're not going to just cut it randomly. You're not just going to take I'll say no more oversimplified approach. You will use our rubrics and our method to reduce the number of things that you are doing so that you can make space to write. You'll create your ideal week and understand the difference between ideal week and real week and how the ideal week can help you. And then you will work on creating a writing practice that I call a relationship-based writing practice. And what I mean by that is that it's a writing practice that is designed to make your relationship with your writing better and create more and more positive interactions between you and your writing. So that is kind of the gist of what the program's about. Every week you get a recorded lesson. The lessons run between, they can be as short as 20 or 25 minutes up to 40 minutes or so. Plus there'll usually be some kind of, activity or assignment like to do based on the lesson. So you want to take about an hour to do that work and then an hour for our live call. The live calls alternate between a group coaching call. So we're all in a big group together and it's kind of like the discussion section of a lecture, right? And in a little bit of a way, this is like a flipped classroom model where you consume the content on your own and then you come to the live call to ask questions and to get coaching on implementing the content. That's really important. I can tell you all day long what to do, but many times we need that coaching to actually implement and take action. And that's what the coaching calls are for. We alternate between coaching calls and co-writing calls. So one week we'll coach, the next week we'll all get on the Zoom and write together. And that is also really important because you are carving that space in your week for writing, but you're doing it with the support of the program. And so if you're thinking like, oh man, I have so many partially done articles and, sitting around, but nothing's really moving or it's moving too slow, Navigate is the program for you because you will select one of those projects. And as part of the program, all you got to do is show up to the calls. You will get 5 hours of writing time in on that project. Plus, of course, what you're trying to do is build more time, outside of that, but at least you will get 5 hours of writing. And I bet you have a project right now that you can think of that's like 5 hours away from being submitted. So if you have a backlog of papers, Navigate is the program for you. It is for professors. It's not for graduate students. We really are looking for, it's really designed for people who are in a permanent position. We do often have postdocs. So in a group of 20, 25, we might have 3 postdocs, just so you can get a sense. We do have people at all career stages from early, pre-tenure, post-tenure, people who are already full professors. We have people who are in administration, who are coming out of administration. We get a whole range. But anyone who is a professor with a backlog of papers, this is a program designed for you. So I'll give you the nitty-gritty details. The cost of the program is $3,000. We also do have a payment plan. And the deadline to enroll is the 3rd Friday in January. Okay, so approximately 3 weeks from now. And then we start the first week of February. And that first Friday in February is our meeting. We meet at 12 noon Eastern for an hour every week for 12 weeks, starting the first Friday in February. The program is an application-only program. There's some steps to get admitted into the program because we're really shaping and designing that room. And we really want to make sure that if you're investing in the program, that it's a good fit between, for you, but for us too, that we're creating this peer group of people that is going to support you. So for that reason, we have an application process. You can apply today. It's a very short application. You can do it right on your phone. Just go to scholarsvoice.org/navigate, hit the pink button, and you will be taken to the little form application. It'll take 3 minutes or so. These are basic kind of screening questions that help me know if you're the right fit for the program. If I read your application and I'm like, yes, this is exactly the kind of client that we work with best, I'll accept your application and you will get sent the Navigate Benchmark Assessment. It's about a 20-question assessment where then that becomes like a tool that we use throughout the program. So You take it at the beginning, you take it at the end of 12 weeks, and then every time you re-enroll, you take it again so that you get a picture of your progress on the Navigate benchmark objectives throughout the time that you are in the program. Now, you might have just heard me say re-enroll. So every time you re-enroll, re-enrolling is just joining a group of graduates with no new recorded content, just new coaching and a much reduced price. So the re-enrollment price for early bird is $900. So just in case you're like, I'm trying to give you like the whole big picture. Many people will take the 12-week program for $3,000 and that's it. They'll go off into the world. They get to keep the recordings for a year. And so they're good to go. But about half of our members, at least this last time, half of our members re-enrolled and are in a separate group for graduates where we do some up-leveled coaching. And the cost of that is $900. Same thing, 12 weeks of live calls. So that's the Navigate program. We would love to get your application. It's like my favorite thing. If you're wondering who the coach is, it's me. So if you would like to work with me, ask questions to me, then apply. So the process is apply. If you get accepted, then you will take the Navigate benchmark assessment. When you turn the Navigate benchmark assessment in, then you will get the link to enroll. You'll also get a link at that point for an optional 15-minute call in case you have questions or you kind of need help with making your decision about whether you're going to enroll or not. So, but you need to do the first 2 steps of the process in order to get access to get on my calendar and have a quick call with me to help with your decision. Those are really the purpose of that call. We call it a clarity call because it's for helping you make a decision about joining the program. If it's not the right thing for you, then that's fine. And many times people need to talk to a human, and that's totally fine as well. So that's what that call is for. But if not, you'll get the link to enroll. You can use a credit card to enroll. If you need anything special so that you can use your university funds to pay, we deal with that all the time. I would just say that if you are listening now, you have about 2.5 weeks in order to figure out your funding, 3 weeks. So get on it and let us know if you have any questions. So you want to apply now, especially if you're going to use university funding, because we have to have received payment for you to begin the program in the first week of February. All right. Happy New Year. So glad to be back recording new podcasts. You'll be getting new things in the next 3 weeks. I hope you enjoy them. And I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you so much for spending your valuable time supporting yourself and your writing by listening to this episode. If you like what you heard today, the best way to say thank you is to hop on over to Apple iTunes and write an honest review. The more reviews, the more amazing academic women and non-binary people will find this podcast. So go write one now.